Yo, what's up sa inyo mga kawanlab? Ako nga po pala si Jake Magnus at nandito daang debate dito sa SMNI na kung saan ay mapapansin po natin sa video na kung gaano kalupit magtanong etong si Prof. Clarita Carlos ay ganun din po kalupit etong si Senator Rodante at saka po itong si former Senator Gringo Hunasan. Halos lahat naman po ay magagaling yung mga finalist na dumalo dito sa SMNI debate. Pero ang isa sa napansin ng mga netizen ay ito pong kung paano sumagot etong si Senator Gringo Hunasan at saka itong si Senator Rodante Marcoleta. So panoorin po natin kung gaano kalupit etong dalawang miyembro ng UD team. Uulitin ko po, lahat po sila magagaling. So panoorin po natin. Eto na po, eto na.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I was listening to all of you and I was taking down notes like yesterday. And I thought that if all of you were to be elected senator, we would indeed be moving towards a better Philippines. Congratulations. Let me also acknowledge my colleagues here, my friend Clink Ang, and two of my former students, Anna and Rolex. Sanggang na kami dito. All right. I've always felt that your work as senator will be centered on ratification of treaties, international conventions, agreements, and the like. That is the reason why for all the questions that I have asked here, they really are focusing on foreign policy, defense, and security. Here's the question. I think everybody knows that there is an ongoing DND review of the 1952 Mutual Defense Treaty. There are two options: abrogate the Mutual Defense Treaty or amend some parts of it. If you are not for abrogation, then please tell me which parts should be amended.
Thank you, Dr. Carlos. We will hear from Yusek Astra Pimentel.
I am for the amendment of the Mutual Defense Treaty, simply because there is an important part of our relation with other countries, and we know that there are countries that would like to take power over other countries. And the Mutual Defense Treaty must be protecting also our people. Kinakailangan po na ang defense treaty natin ay nakalaad doon because ang panahon natin ngayon ay matagal na yung mutual defense treaty. Marami na pong nagbago. Right now, our women and children must be protected even through sa ating dito sa ating paggawa ng mga batas at sa ating pag-ratify nito, dahil nangangailangan po tayo na magkaroon ng magandang relasyon sa ibang bansa at hindi din tayo maging agrabyado sa panahon ng seguridad, ay maging we will be in the forefront of any war that's going to happen around the world.
Thank you, Yusek Pimentel. Any follow-up? Should we move on to Secretary Piñol?
The Mutual Defense Treaty is just one of the manifestations of the very close relationships between the Philippines and the United States of America. As you all know, the U.S. is our biggest trading partner. So I would favor the retention of the Mutual Defense Treaty, make some improvements, whatever they may be, but I believe that we should hang on to this treaty because this manifests our strong relationship with our oldest trading partner, the United States of America. Thank you.
Chairman Belhica.
War is around the corner. So the Philippines must strengthen its military capabilities and its relationship with other countries. The Mutual Defense Treaty must be amended so that America, when Philippines gets attacked or gets into war, can automatically respond to our aid. Ngayon po kasi, the President of the United States will have to get permission from Congress. Mahihirapan po tayo pagka napasok tayo rito ng malalaking mga bayan para basuhin. So as we strengthen our security, we must also amend the Mutual Defense Treaty and cultivate our relationship with our neighboring countries.
Thank you. Next we have Secretary Panelo.
Sa akin pong pananaw, kailangan tanggalin muna natin itong Mutual Defense Treaty at pumasok tayo sa bagong tratado. Palaging titingnan po natin ang interes ng ating bansa, ang territorial integrity at ang sovereignty. Hindi maaari na ang katratado natin ay palaging may bentaha at tayo ay wala. Kailangan isa-isahin po natin ang provision na magkakaroon ng tunay na proteksyon. Hindi lamang sa isa, kundi dapat kaya nga tinawag na mutual. Kailangan kung anong panganib sa isa ay magiging panganib din sa katratado nito at gagawa sila ng mga galaw upang maproteksyonan. Hindi po pwede yung merong panganib dito pero hindi pa rin gumagalaw ang katratado natin. Kailangan talagang i-abrogate muna ngayon. Pumasok sa bago.
Okay. Deputy Speaker Marcoleta.
I am for an amendment and to renegotiate the terms of the MDT. Ang tanong po ay anong i-amend natin kung sakasakali? Yung Article 2 po sinasabi, both parties have the obligation to help one another in order for them to achieve the capacity to resist armed attack in the Pacific. Paano po kung yung armed attack ay hindi naman sa Pacific? Halimbawa ngayon po ay sa South China Sea. Palagi ko po, geographically speaking, yung South China Sea, parte po ng Indo-Pacific yun. Hindi po siya talaga kumbaga sa Pacific side, which is the western side of the Philippines. So kailangan po nating ayusin. Pagkatapos po, 70 years na nakararaan, pero hindi naman nila tayo tinulungan in order for us to be capacitated to resist an armed attack. Article 3 po sinasabi rin doon, kailangan palagi silang nag-uusap itong dalawang partido. Whenever they feel that each other is being threatened politically or their independence is somehow being threatened. Hindi rin po nangyayari ito, kaya kailangan nating i-renegotiate po.
Okay. Senator Hornasan.
The Mutual Defense Treaty is driven by Commonwealth Act No. 1, drafted more than 70 years ago by Major Dwight Eisenhower and William Ord. Hindi ho ako nahihiyan sabihin sa inyo na magkasing edad kami ng Commonwealth Act No. 1. And it drives, the consequence is a non-existent national security policy that is anchored on a clear definition of what constitutes our national interest. Let's overhaul the whole thing, renegotiate the whole thing. In the meantime, self-reliance. Let's prepare to defend ourselves in any situation. Thank you po.
Thank you, Senator Hornasan. Senator,
may I
yes,
have
go
a
ahead, Dr.
follow-up,
Carlos.
For General Hornasan. Just today, I think Biden talked about installing nuclear warheads in Japan. If we are going to renegotiate our relationship with the United States and the U.S. demands that we also set up similar nuclear warheads, what will your position be?
Unsolicited advice to the U.S. President. Hinay-hinay tayo dito.
Yes.
Let us not start something that we cannot finish to the detriment of the global community. Pag nagbabalyahan kayo doon, tumataas yung presyo ng langis dito. Sino nahihirapan? Hindi lang kayo. Kami, the entire global community. Unsolicited advice. Something for us to think, reflect, and pray on.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Speaker Marcoleta, yeah.
Senator Greg, hindi ba nung kinanyon yung ating mga kinanyon ng tubig, yung ating mga mangingisda at kinuha naman ng China yung ating Scarborough Shoal, hindi ba dapat nag-operate na yung Article 3 na kung saan kapag natetreten, sabi niya doon, yung ating political independence or even our security, kailangan nag-uusap itong dalawa. Wala akong nakitang pag-uusap. Ano kayang masasabi mo ron?
Una-una po, hanggang ngayon, kaya binanggit ko kanina yung national interest. Ano ba gigirian natin doon? No? Isda, langis, lupa, tubig, nasa ilalim ng tubig. Let's be very clear about what we are going to fight and die for as a people.
So are we going to die for fish? Well, because I think we're also talking food security. I think Secretary Piñol talked about food security as the top of the list. Because it seems to me that that is really what we're fighting for. Not really oil, because we're moving away from oil. General Honasan?
Well, ma'am, yun nga ho hindi malinaw. It may be clear to some of us, but it is not clear to every able-bodied, freedom-loving Filipino. Dapat alam nila ito. Dahil ang nakataya rito, hindi yung survival ng bawat isa sa atin. Ang nakataya rito is the survival of the Filipino nation.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a question from Yusek Pimentel.
Ang sabi ni Senator Honasan is that dapat maghinay-hinay ang Amerika. Based on experience, never po naghinay-hinay ang Amerika. Tayo dito sa Pilipinas, maraming eksperyensya ng ating mga kabataan at kababaihan ay nagkakaroon ng masamang eksperyensya when it comes to when it comes to war, and even kahit doon sa Mindanao, lalong-lalo na kami, marami tayong eksperyensya even dito sa mga bases and ng ating mga karatig na bansa at lalong-lalo na sa Amerika.
May I reply?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Wala naman ho tayong military bases sa California. Kung patas talaga ang laban, dapat patas, pareho. May bases sila rito. May EDCA. Bakit wala tayo dun sa California? So, hindi ko alam kung tama yun.
Salamat, Senator Honasan. Let's move on to Senator J.B. Ejercito.
As the name of the treaty suggests, Mutual Defense Treaty, dapat ho ito pantay-pantay. No? We are considered the little brown brothers of the United States of America, one of the staunchest allies. Nagtaka rin ako noong una, bakit si Presidente Duterte noong una, bakit hindi gusto ang Amerika. Pero looking back, looking at the military aid, doon na lang po sa aid, military aid. When we talked about military aid, they gave us 5, 10 million, 50, probably $30 million in military aid. When you look at other countries, hundreds of millions of dollars. And yet we are supposed to be the staunchest ally. Pag sinabing Pilipinas, kakampi kagad na Amerika. Pangalawa po sa West Philippine Sea, probably now that aside from mutual defense treaty with the United States, we can already forge alliances with Australia, Japan, UK, and other Asian countries that have disputes with China. Because we cannot fight China. They are a superpower. We may have 30 jet fighters, they may have 500. Meron tayong 30 frigates, they may have 800. So it should be a cooperation among the different countries in the ASEAN.
Okay. We move on to Mr. Jess Aranza.
Mahal kong kababayan, sa silakbo ng aking dibdib ngayon, gusto ko i-abrogate. Ngunit, yan ay emosyon. Siguro, pag-aralan natin mabuti, sapagkat ang tao, pagka ikay nagagalit o masaya o natatakot, dapat huwag mong gawan ng desisyon, sapagkat ang desisyon mo may be a wrong decision. I will be for abrogation. However, I would rather that we wait and we study this carefully, sapagkat ang pabigla-bigla ho ay nakakatakot. Unang-una, hindi naman ho ako sanay sa mga war o defense na ganyan. Pero sa aking pananaw, iba na rin yung may nasasandal ng kapamisan-misan. At iba na rin yung sana magaya rin tayo sa ibang tratado na ginawa nila. Halimbawa sa Taiwan, na wala na yung sinasabing based on our constitution that when it allows. Isaalasin na natin yun. Yun lang ho ang aking masasabi. Salamat po.
Yes, Deputy Speaker Marcoleta.
Bakit po, Mang Jess, nung yung pong mga vessels ng China na sinideswipe yung ating mga mangingisda, at kaganyan sinabi ko, binugahan pa ng mga tubig, at pagkatapos ay kinuha yung Scarborough Shoal, nautakan tayo doon. Bakit hindi kumibo ang ating Senado given the Mutual Defense Treaty, sapagkat nandun sa Article 3 na kinakailangan silang magkatulungan, sapagkat nakikita na natin na ito'y bumabangga na sa seguridad ng ating bansa kung hindi man political independence.
Kaibigan, hindi ako nasa Senado noon eh. Kaya pasensya na po, hindi ko
Bakit na
masagot.
po?
Ngunit, ang sasabihin ko lang, may mga pagkakataon ho, mga kababayan, na hindi uraw-urada na emosyon ang ipapalabas sa atin. Mahirap po yun. Dapat pag-aralan ho. Lahat ng bagay, lalo na yung mga relasyon natin sa ibang bansa, pag-aralan pong mabuti sapagkat pag ikaw ay pumasok na, mahirap ka nang lumabas dyan.
Okay, Secretary Bellica.
Ginoong Aranza, may just have a follow-up. Kayo po ba ay naniniwala doon sa pinromesa na Indo-Pacific Security Umbrella ng Quad?
Pakiulit po, hindi ko narinig.
Kayo po ba ay naniniwala doon sa Indo-Pacific Security Umbrella na supposedly ay pinopromesa ng Amerika? Is America still a reliable partner? Kasi I think this is where Mr. Marcoleta is going, isn't it?
Well, sa nakikita ko ngayon, sa kasalukuyan nangyari, ay sa tingin ko nga ho, parang balat bunga lamang ang pagsasabing tutulong. Kaya nga sabi ko, kung sakali man, baka natin ma-adapt din yung katulad ng ginawa sa tratado nila sa Taiwan, na wala na yung mga pakundangan kung paano, basta kung may problema, sugod kagad sila at dapat sumabay sila sa depensa. Yun lang po ang aking masasabi.
Okay, we have a question from Mr. Bellica.
Like what I said, we have to prepare ourselves for war and push for peace at the same time among our regional neighbors, that we do not want to get into war, but we have to be prepared for war. Sa ganyan pong banggaan, tayo lahat ang talo kung hindi tayo prepared. So we have to look at this treaty and we have to prepare ourselves and secure ourselves and our country and take leadership among the region to talk things out to abrogate war.
Thank you. Let's hear from Dr. Menggita Padilla.
Agree po ako kay Congressman Marcoleta, no, na kailangan talagang amyendahan. We cannot abrogate kasi kailangan pa rin natin. What's happening in Ukraine now, wala silang mutual defense treaty. Hindi rin member ng NATO ang Ukraine. No? Tayo naman, ang kailangan lang natin gawin, iklaro natin, no? Let's make it clear, anong ibig nyo sabihin ng national security, ng national interest. Yung pagbabangga at pagkakanyon ng vapor, yung mga bangka, no? At yung mga sa West Philippine Sea, I think that should have merited something. Kahit man lang nagalit sila o nagsalita sila. Hindi naman ibabomba yung China. We cannot do that, no? But we have to amend. And siguro ngayon, mas powerful tayo kasi baka may problema yung China, Taiwan. They'll need the Philippines also, strategically. Baka we can demand more from them as far as what they owe us and what they will give us as part of the treaty. Hindi lang yung conditional, but bibigyan ka tayo unconditional. Certain things we also need for our own strength and security on our own.
Okay, Congressman Marcoleta.
Ma'am, hindi ba dapat alisin natin yung phrase na armed attack? Kasi hindi naman talaga aatakin siguro tayo ng China. So kapag ka hindi armed attack, kahit kailan hindi mag-operationalize yung Mutual Defense Treaty. Ang gusto kong mangyari, pag may threat lang sa ating security or political independence, mag-operationalize na kagad. Katulad ng binangga tayo, sinabuyan tayo ng tubig, wag na nating hintayin yung armed attack. Parang may konting panluloko dito, ma'am.
Actually, agree ako doon. Hindi kailangan ng armed attack, no? Any attack on our people. Alam mo, kinakausapan namin yung mga mangingisda doon sa Quezon. Sinabi marami raw nawawala na at hindi na nakabalik. And they think talagang in-attack yung mga tao. Hindi mo kailangan armed, pwede mong banggain, pwede mong whatever, no? So, dapat nga mas klaro yon at hindi dapat hintayin pa na magbarilan bago sila kumilos.
Okay, Senator Honasan.
Sandali lang po ito. So, to our audience, no, just look at the map. Look at where the Philippines is at the map. Tayo ho ang may hawak ng traffic light. Air lane, sea lane, submarine. We can be the digital, the political, the social, the economic hub, not only of the Asia Pacific, but of the world. Yun ho ang potential natin. We are blessed not because of, but in spite of lack of policy.
Okay, Secretary Panelo.
Kaugnay po ito sa katanungan ni Professor Carlos kanina, Secretary Honasan, na ang Amerika ngayon may intensyon na mag-deploy ng nuclear arms weapons dun sa Japan. At ang tanong niya po kanina, kung dito sa ating bansa ano ang magiging posisyon. At ang sagot po ni Secretary ay hinay-hinay lang. Ibig ko lang po ipaalala sa ating lahat na bawal sa ilalim ng ating saligang batas ang mag-imbak ng nuclear weapons or arms dito sa ating bansa.
And let's go back to Dr. Padilla.
No, may sasabihin na ako na sa sinabi ni Secretary Greg, no, talagang strategic ang Philippines in so many ways. Kaya we can demand more out of the treaty. And hindi lang yon. Yung freedom of navigation is very important for so many people. Hindi nila pahabayaan ng West Philippine Sea. So talagang hindi tayo nag-iisa. We can actually enter into treaties with other nations who need freedom of navigation in the West Philippine Sea. Huwag tayo magpapakawawa o magpapaapi kasi meron tayong lakas.
Okay, we would love, I'll get back to you, sir, but let's hear from Ms. Norma Halkiram.
Yes. Sa tingin ko naman po, okay lang tayong makipagkaibigan sa kanila, pero hanggang doon lang po muna. Dahil kung hindi naman po yan concern sa Pilipinas, kung hindi naman po yung mga away or gulo na related po sa Philippines, siguro pagtigbayan na lang po natin yung lakas po natin. Kasi pag ang nangyayari po is etong Mutual Defense Treaty, pag sinabi ng isang bansa na eto, ka-allies ka namin, ibig sabihin kahit hindi wala tayong gulo, nadadamay tayo. So pagdating sa natin sa gas natin, sa pagkain natin, tumataas. Kasi nga nakikita ng ibang bansa na marami silang kalaban. So mas maganda siguro, dahil kami sa Mindanao, ibabalik ko sa Mindanao, marami po kami, nagkaroon din po kami ng gera. Siguro ito na lang pagtuunan natin ng pansin, yung mismong sa Pilipinas.
Okay, let's hear from Secretary Belhica.
Yeah, as we talk to our neighboring countries, we first must prepare because danger is imminent. The threat is already present. Then we push for peace. If the Constitution and the laws need to be changed, then we must change it. Dahil wala hong ganitong threat nung ginawa yung Constitution na yan.
Okay, we will have...
Hello? Daphne?
Yes.
Is it okay to...
I suppose. Go ahead.
A follow-up question to Mr. Bellica. You've said earlier that, we have to prepare for war and at the same time you have to push for peace. And you've mentioned also well that there's such a thing as a threat. Now, my question is, how would you prepare for war and what's the threat that you're trying to, you're trying to say?
It's based on the question of the doctor and
But the question of Dr. Carlos is all about the U.S. trying to deploy nuclear warheads in Japan. Is it a threat already to the Philippines?
Yes, the threat is already there because you're deploying warheads, nuclear warheads in countries beside us. And a war can just, happen anytime. So we have to prepare. It's better to prepare than to be caught surprised.
How would you do that?
Yeah, but is that, you need to, Anna, is that something that can be prevented? As a matter of fact, it's not only in Japan that U.S. wants to
deploy nuclear warheads.
Yeah. Even in South Korea, they want to do that. So,
the thing is, ma'am, hindi naman tayo pakikinggan if we will be negotiating in a weak position. As I've said, let us negotiate for peace, let us take leadership in the region, bring them all in the negotiating table, but make sure that we have something that they will listen to. And without this equipments and without being prepared, hindi ko tayo pakikinggan.
Okay, I see you, Ms. Pimentel, and Mr. Aranza, and Dr. Padilla, but let's first hear from Mr. Ding Diaz. You have 1 minute.
We cannot abrogate for the simple reason that it will not be allowed. It will not be allowed by our neighbors. It will not be allowed by our allies. It will not be allowed by the United States of America. Nasabi po ni Senador Gringo Honasan na ang Pilipinas po is strategically located. Ito po ang pinakayaman po natin dito sa kabila po ng mga abundance ng mga likas na yaman pa po na meron po tayo. Now, kung ako po ang tatanungin, we don't need an amendment to the Mutual Defense Treaty. What we need is a complete overhaul so that it will be attuned to the times, since that particular treaty served the needs of the Philippines and the United States 70 years ago. A lot has changed. A lot has changed now, and we have to have a lot of overhauling to do.
Okay, before we continue with the rebuttals, we have a follow-up question, sir.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No,
Ma'am.
you go first.
Okay, address to Mr. Ding Diaz.
Yes, sir.
Walang pakialam ang kapitbahay natin kung anong gagawin natin dito sa Pilipinas. The conduct of foreign relations is exclusively lodged with the President.
Totoo po yun.
To a certain extent, to the Senate on the ratification of treaties. That is found in Section 4, Article 18 of the transitory provisions of the 1987 Constitution. I'm sorry, sir. I don't want this country to just follow another country around us. We are a sovereign country.
Yes.
You are very correct. You are very correct, Mr. Suplico. Unfortunately, a lot of things that are happening internationally happens because of maneuverings, not directly, but indirectly by the superpowers. Now, what I'm trying to emphasize here is this. America needs the Philippines. So let us maximize on this. If they really need us, we have to get something really worth our while.
What if we don't need America?
Madam, at this point,
Is it mutual?
Yeah.
Madam, at this point, if we don't need America, then the professor said, then it's not going to be mutual. But what I'm telling you here is this. We cannot say that we don't need America because China is a friend or Russia is a friend or other countries are friends. I believe that we have a long way to go. What we should focus on, if that is the point, we should build ourselves really strongly, not just militarily, but more importantly, economically and diplomatically.
Okay, let's hear from Yusek Pimentel, Mr. Aranza, and Dr. Padilla in that order.
In relation to the preparation of the Philippines, kailangang maamendahan ang defense treaty na ito to include technology. Because dito sa ating nakikita natin na ang Amerika, despite having a relationship with us, laging tira-tira ang binibigay. They should give us priority also in terms of technology dahil kahit ngayon wala tayong sariling satellite, wala tayong sariling eye of the sky, habang sila ay napakaraming teknolohiyang ginagamit.
Comment lang po ito. No?
Mr. Aranza.
Comment lang po ito. Sa aking nabasa, kung tama, ang Estados Unidos ay merong katratado na 69 countries. Ito kayang 69 countries na composed of 75% of goods and composed of about 2 billion inhabitants. Ito kaya ay na-review ng ating mga foreign affairs para makita lang kung ano kaya ang mga experience nitong mga bansang ito. Amot, pag nakaupo tayo doon talagang pagsusunugan ko ng kilay ang...
Dr. Padilla.
Ilalagay ko lang sa konteksto, no? Kasi yung nangyayari sa Ukraine, di ba? Invaded by Russia. Everybody was saying, hindi gagawin ni Putin yan, hindi siya sirang ulo. Pero ginawa niya, unprovoked. Ngayon, sa North Korea, he keeps testing nuclear warheads. O hindi gagawin yan. Pero who knows? I think that's the reason why America is putting nuclear warheads in Japan and South Korea. Ngayon, we have to demand more in the treaty. And treat us like an ally, more like an ally than a little brown brother. So we can also defend ourselves and help more.
Okay. Follow-up question for Dr. Padilla about the Ukraine crisis that you mentioned. You've said that Putin attacked or had a military intervention in Ukraine unprovoked. Do you really think it's unprovoked if what is happening right now and the action of Putin, given that, Ukraine is being persuaded or to a certain extent influenced by the West in joining NATO. And if you look at it, NATO is a military alliance. So if Ukraine will be part of NATO, to a greater extent, there's a possibility that nuclear warheads will be in Ukraine. Do you really think it's unprovoked, given that it's a border country between Ukraine and Russia?
Okay, I know, I believe that Russia really attacked Ukraine because they were afraid that they were going to join NATO. No, because pag sumali ang Ukraine sa NATO, lahat ng former USSR, NATO na. Okay? And it's the closest to Russia, and they can definitely attack them. So but it was not provoked by an attack. It was not provoked by an attack. That's different.
So do you think Russia doesn't have any right to defend its national security given that it's being threatened by the very fact that, you know, there's a possibility that will be military bases in there and also nuclear weapons in Ukraine, if in any case it will be part of NATO. Do you think so?
I don't think they had the right to attack the way they're doing, because Ukraine also has a right to put whatever they want there in order to protect themselves from an attack by Russia. That's none of the business of Putin. It's a different country already. If they had started attacking him, if I said they had started doing other attacks, for example, cyber attacks, a little bit of weapons, then maybe yes, it would have been provoked. But it is the right of Ukraine, self-determination.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay, we
Padilla.
have, before we have a follow-up question from Mr. Ang, we will hear from Secretary Piñol.
May I just share my thoughts on this conversation about war, about nuclear warheads? While foreign policy, I understand, is an exclusive domain of the President, if I were a member of the Senate, I would, as an expression of the sentiment of the Senate, join the voices against the fielding of these nuclear warheads. War is not easy. It's painful. I know, because I was born in a war-affected province, and I know the difficulties, the pain, and the anguish of war.
Thank you. Follow-up question, Dante Ang.
Thank you, Daphne. I wasn't going to ask because I always defer to Professor Carlos with regards to foreign policy. But, well, first of all, I'd like to remind my co-panelists that Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons when it exited from the Soviet Union. But the question is this, foreign policy is anchored on national interest. And in my humble opinion, our national interest is to preserve peace. You guys mentioned education, economy, tourism, smuggling, all sorts of issues which I think are conditional on the preservation of peace. Now, my question is, do you agree that our national interest is to preserve peace? And if you do or you do not, could you please state what you think is our national interest?
Raise your hand, anyone. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Preservation of peace is very important, especially for us women, because we are the ones who care for our children, those who are less fortunate, and even those who are most vulnerable in times of war. And in that is why President Duterte's policy is always friend to all, enemy to none.
Okay, Mr. Ding Diaz.
Who does not want peace? Everybody wants to live in peace. But together with peace, there must also economic stability. Then, if we have economic stability, we have a supportive government, we have a cooperative people, it's not just peace, it's going to be prosperity.
Okay, Secretary Belhiga.
Yes, in order to have peace, we have to remember that we have to let our enemies know that we are ready for war at any time. Yan po ang sinabi ni President George Washington sa mga kabataang sundalo nung siya po ay bababa na sa pwesto. We have to let our enemies know and prepare for war and push for peace. We want peace, that's why we prepare for war.
Okay, a rebuttal from Secretary Piñol. Go ahead.
No, this is in response to the question of Klink. Yes, peace should be our national goal. And I can say that with certainty because of what happened to us in Mindanao. For over 60 decades, or 6 decades, we were torn in a brutal war. We were underdeveloped. But now that the President has signed a peace agreement with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, things are turning out right for us. And we're turning out better now. We're producing more. So I believe that the key to our progress and prosperity as a nation is peace. Not only in Mindanao, but all over the country.
Senator Harnasan.
We cannot give, in answer to the question, we cannot give what we do not have. Our immediate national interest, to my mind, is to unite as a people, fix our backyard, and promote Article 3 of the Constitution. Protect life, liberty, and property. Any possible happiness. What use is life, liberty, and property if you're not happy? That constitutes our immediate national interest.
Okay, Senator JV.
When you talk about peace, let us prioritize peace in the country, especially in Mindanao. there has been this insurgency to the east and there's rebellion in the west. The root cause is poverty. That is why I am really supportive of the infrastructure development of the President. I think with massive infrastructure development, it will spread out the development towards the different provinces in Mindanao, and that will provide jobs and opportunities because we will be creating growth development areas. When there's already food and there's jobs and opportunities, all the rebellion and the insurgency will slowly die a natural death.
Thank you. Let's hear from Ms. Noor Mahal Kiram.
Yes po. Yung peace na tinatawag dito sa sa Mindanao, actually kung pagbibigyan nga po ng trabaho, kasi laging pag sinasabing Mindanao, laging may terorismo, laging ganon ang ano nila sa tao. Pero kung tutuusin, pag binigyan niyo po ng opportunity yan, syempre magkakaroon ng peace. Tapos ibigay po sa kanila yung lupang para sa kanila talaga. Pagyamanin po nila ang kultura at the same time po yung lupa nila.
Okay. Yusek Pimentel and Dr. Padilla.
In addition to our aim for peace, dapat kailangang malaman natin na importante para sa atin sa Pilipinas ang peace of other nations because there are Filipinos in all of the nations that we have. Ang ating mga OFW, ang ating mga OF ay nandoon. And if there is war in any of those countries, we will be affected.
Okay, we have 30 seconds. Dr. Padilla?
Peace is an aspiration of everyone, but I agree that we need to have economic stability to have peace. You give economic stability, social services, free education, hospitalization. The NPAs come out of the mountains and they join the people. Economic stability, economic progress. But I also agree with Mr. Belica. Sometimes you need to negotiate from a point of strength in order to have peace.
Okay, Secretary Panelo first, and then Secretary Piñol.
Peace in any country can only be secured by securing the internal threats as well as the external threats. Doon sa internal ay kailangan tingnan natin kung paano natin susugpuin yung panganib sa loob. At pagdating naman sa labas, ay kailangan palakasin natin ang ating bansa upang tayo ay handa sa anumang panganib na darating sa atin.
Hey. Mr. Piñol?
Ang kapayapaan po ay nagsisimula sa isang busog na tiyan. And so while we have been talking about the abstract word peace, may I ask everybody to focus on food security, because without food, we will not have peace. Without food, our people will go hungry. They could rebel against government. And so food security is the most important issue that I believe we should discuss in this forum today.
Okay, we are just in round one. We have a follow-up question from
just
Dr.
final follow-up. Anyone can answer, Daphne. Do you think the U.S. is still a reliable defense ally?
Let's go this way. Go ahead, sir.
As long as it...
Yep.
They will always be reliable as long as it will suit their better interests.
Correct.
So in any situation, if it does not suit their interest, they will find a way to get out of it. But if it will suit their interest, they will do everything to be in it. Okay? So what I'm trying to say here, let's build ourselves strongly so that America will always feel that they need us.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
America's reliability as a partner depends also on the leaders that we have in the Philippines. Because if we have competent leaders that leads our people and is able to talk to them and have the great respect of these people, then they will give us what we deserve.
Okay, Secretary Piñol.
Reliability as a partner may be in question. The mere fact that America as our partner could be an effective deterrent against any threat.
Okay. Go ahead.
We have to be open to all as a sovereign state. We have to be talking to everyone because we are not at war with anyone, but we can be in the middle of any war. America being reliable to the Philippines, tingnan natin kung ano po ang gagawin nila, pero we cannot stop or We cannot base our decision on what they will do, but we have to pursue the interests of the Philippines as a sovereign state.
Thank you, Secretary Panelo.
Yung pong pagbibigay natin ng sagot sa katanungan yun, depende po yun sa interest talaga ng bawat bansa. Pag ang interest ay makakabuti sa kanila, magiging talagang kaibigan natin. Nakita po natin, marami na ang karanasan ng Amerika ay hindi natin naasahan sa mga ibang mga pagkakataon. Kasi pabor sa kanila. Yun ang katotohanan dyan.
Hey, Deputy Speaker Marcoleta.
Hindi na po reliable sa akin ang Amerika dahil sa maraming mga pangyayari. Dito lamang sa panig ng ating mundo, nung kunin ng China ang Scarborough Shoal, hindi siya kumibo. Nung sagasaan yung ating mga pangingisda, di man lang tayo tinulungan, di man lang tayo nilingon. Nung binomba tayo ng tubig, yung ating mga mangingisda, ganun din. Napansin din natin sa bansang Vietnam, iniwanan din naman ang Vietnam. At saka yung bansa sa Africa o sa Middle East.
Okay.
So hindi na siya reliable para sa akin po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Honasan.
I don't think America is as strong as before. The internal problems in America is...
Sorry, sir. Let's just go down the line. Senator Honasan first, and then I'll go down to you.
You called me kasi. That's why I answered.
Honasan na muna.
Reliable ho ba na kaibigan ng US? Inventaryuhin natin ang lahat ng security, bilateral, multilateral security and economic arrangements with the US. And let's conduct a performance audit. Baka naman reliable tayo sa kanila, pero sila ay hindi reliable para sa atin.
Senator J.V. Ejercito.
As I mentioned earlier, we are considered their little brown brothers. But I think we have to amend and renegotiate that if ever there will be a new mutual defense treaty, it will now be as partners. Nabanggit ko kanina, pag nagbigay po sila ng military aid sa atin, mga junk, mura lang, a few $1 million. Kumpara po sa ibang bansa na hundreds of millions of dollars, dapat ganun din po ang pagtrato nila sa ating bansa. They have also to equip us with equipment just like a partner. Dapat strategic partner tayo. Dapat pantay-pantay. Hindi po bilang isang maliit na kapatid.
Mr. Jess Aranza.
I don't think America is as strong as before. They are so divided. After the election, the entire country have problems on supply, they have problems internally. So I don't think that they can give us all the support before, like before, because this time they have problems internally.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Padilla, please.
Like any country should, ang first interest ng Amerika is self-interest. So they are reliable when it is also for their self-interest. Ngayon, tayo naman, we have to also look out for number one, the Philippines, always. So we should really have partners for other countries. We should not only put all our eggs in one basket. Magka-partner tayo sa iba't ibang bansa na interesado sa kapayapaan ng West Philippine Sea. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Nur Mahal Kiram.
Pagdating po sa Amerika, I don't think pwede pa tayong mag-rely sa kanila. Kasi sa dami ng ginawa sa dami ng mga batas na ginawa, walang nangyari, walang natupad. Pero pag pwede naman tayong makipagkaibigan sa kanila to that extent na kahit sa ibang bansa, iba-ibang bansa, pwede tayong makipagkaibigan po. Pero hanggang dun lang po.
Okay, maraming salamat. First round pa lang to ng round 1. Marami pa tayong pag-uusapan. So for now, thank you so much, Professor Carlos. After the break, we will hear questions from the other panelists. SMNI Senatorial Debate 2022 will be back.